Good afternoon, Mark here from Excel, and a somewhat Christmassy wine tasting and a tasting of a wine, curiously, that we no longer can offer. But the reason for doing this is to discuss the vintage that follows. The wine in question is this one, and the following vintage being this one, which is the Monsaraz Reserva, a Portuguese wine from Alentejo, produced by Carmim. And it featured as one of the best in shows at this year's Decanter World Wine Awards, as per that supplement, and as per this wine here. And it's caused a real stir, actually. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of Portuguese blends. I think that it's all very well taking a blend and coming up with this idea that we'll take one grape to create tannin and structure, and we'll take one grape to create fruit, and one to create aroma. And of course, great wines do this. Rioja does it famously, as do the Bordeaux blends, and so many other options. And I see the idea of that, but my personal experience with an awful lot of Portuguese reds is that they are quite clumsy in the way that they lock those grapes together. And yes, you get structure, and yes, you get flavour, and yes, you get aroma, and these things are all locked in from 3 or 4 different grapes, but somehow they just don't meld and they just don't blend. What I think is unusual, and what Decanter have definitely pulled out with this particular wine, is that melding, that combination, that balance of those different components has worked extremely well. And we offered this a few weeks ago, and it nearly all sold before it had arrived. After it arrived, it vanished very quickly. And it was the 2017 vintage, and this is it here. And I mean, for all the fact that it has that balance and it has that blend, this is not a wine that hides its light under a bushel. It is a wine which is very full. I mean, it's 50% alcohol. It's spicy. It's got a huge amount of flavour. It's very big on the nose. Combination of red fruits, black fruits, definitely some spice, definitely some pepper. It's a little bit Syrah-y. If you didn't know, you could assume that was perhaps a really big New World Syrah. But it's just really attractive on the nose. And in the mouth, there's just a huge amount going on. It's really full of flavour. You'd have to say it's a really classic winter warmer. And yeah, as Decanter point out, this is a wine you can definitely sell at least for 5 years and maybe as much as 10. There is tannin, there is acidity aplenty there, and the concentration, the density of fruit is huge. That is a wine that is going to go on and going to persist. And so you've got this really unusual combination of a wine that will drink beautifully now and is very full and very full on, and also a wine that I think will persist and draw itself out for the next 10 years. And it's really interesting because of it. But there is a problem, and that is it has all gone. By the time we got to this, and because of the delay in the Decanter World Wine Awards this year, the 2017 is completely run out. We took the last pallets that came out of Portugal, and they've sold, and they've all gone, and they are all spoken for. However, there's always a rush on these wines when we first offer them, and then sometimes we see a second rush because we have seen a real liking by our customers for those, and this is one such wine. But unfortunately, as you come back and look for more, this is no longer available. What is available is this, which doesn't look like the same wine, but it's because Carmim have decided to put it in a Macon Burgundy bottle, which frankly I don't like as much, and frankly I'm not a big fan of the label. It turns out that those of you who have seen it aren't a big fan of it either. However, what is in the glass and what is in the bottle is what really matters. You might expect me to say this. You would expect to say, yes, the new vintage that is not rated is every bit as good as the old vintage. Well, it doesn't really matter to us. If it wasn't as good, we wouldn't recommend it, and we would just sell something else. We will find something else that you will like. But we do want to find this wine to offer you, if it's as good, because clearly a lot of you are looking for it. And this is it here. And the 2018 is every bit as big in terms of what it does to you on the nose. There is just a fraction more lightness to it, and we are talking fractions, okay? This is not huge differences. But it's just a little more red fruit, there's a little more aroma and lightness to it, a little bit more crackle to it, you might say. And it's still, you can tell on the nose, a big, big wine. Take a sip, and it does almost exactly the same as what the 17, the rated vintage did. And that is very full, plenty of body, plenty of tannin, probably a little more tannin, a little more grippiness, a little more crackle to it. Definitely a little more acidity. I think, genuinely and honestly, it is probably a better wine. The structural components of it, the acidity, the tannins, the fruit, they are probably there in greater amounts, certainly the acidity, than was true of the 17. What they haven't yet done is completely and fully meld into a truly warm glass of wine. They're not far off it. I mean, we are talking, you would drink this and it is still a much more structurally together wine than you might otherwise find, certainly in Portuguese blends and certainly in many other wines from around the world. And it's still lovely to drink now. Honestly, I'd hang on to it a few months. If you are thinking of wanting to cellar some of this Monsaraz, then this is probably the better wine to do. Not that you've got the choice because the 17's gone, but it's clearly got some mileage ahead of it, and yet it drinks extremely well already. To the extent that it is any lighter than the rated 17, it's marginal, it's small. It's clearly come from a slightly cooler year, but the 17 was a very hot year. I mean, 17 right the way across Europe, whether you're talking Tuscany, whether you're talking Bordeaux, whether you're talking anywhere in Europe, you're talking some very, very hot wines that came out in 17, and that's clearly true of this particular Alentejo, the 17 Monsaraz. The 18 is lovely. We absolutely wouldn't endorse this if we didn't think it was as good. I think it is genuinely as good a wine, if not a better wine. It does everything just as well. And if you have enjoyed the 17, do I think you'll enjoy the 18? Yes, absolutely. The differences are small, and I'm looking for them because I'm doing this tasting. But it's got everything that the 17's got. It's probably got a little more longevity to it, and it's a cracking wine. And at £13, difficult to fault. Thank you.